a little bit delayed, so you probably saw me get up and then roll to shut the door. Um, so want to do a quick discussion about what is worth, like, and not in the sense of, um, well, like what's value to each individual person, and because you see all the time people going, well, is it worth it? For what's up, Elric? I guess I'd start with that. Hello, everybody. Aces page. Uh, Giliar, what's going on? Audiophile and Josh, Ace, already said, Martin, and Elric. What's going on, everyone? So basically, this one was more just kind of a discussion that I wanted to have with the live chat. So it'll be a little weird because YouTube has such a delay. But more on, because you see it all the time in like in questions that come up all the time whenever someone does a review or impressions or thoughts. Well, is it worth it, or is it what's the value proposition? And a lot of time reviewers also will talk about, or people will talk about, is it worth it, or putting a value on things and how expensive they are or how inexpensive they are, price to performance and all that fun stuff. And this one's kind of different because I wanted to say, like, kind of dive into more of like how that's kind of a flawed like way to look at some of these things, right? Because you can go and get a pair of Cost Porter Pros, and these are fantastic, right? And so, don't cost very much. So with that, are they worth it? I think so. Some other people think so, especially with the Axie pads on there. But then you have to look at, like, one person's kind of goes into this whole, like, one person's value is another person's less valuable, or the one person's how would you put it, like, there's that saying, like, one person's treasure another person's trash, for instance. And I think that's something to really think about and account for, because we all have, what's that, Pascal, different biases, preferences, different income levels, different means of getting and acquiring gear and things like that. And so it's kind of a tough topic to discuss, because it's one of those things, because it's, many people might not be able to afford certain things, or many other people can afford a lot of different things. And how do you balance that with impressions and thoughts on gear? Yeah, Martin, exactly. Does it make your life easier? You is it a tool that's making it better, or is it something that's bringing you joy and is worth it that way? And I want to get into that as well. Like, some things might not be worth it, but the overall value for that individual might be massive. Maybe it's a thing that completely brings them back to neutral, and brings them down and helps them, maintain their stress levels, or, it goes across the board. What's up, Merrick's? So, those are things to think about in this hobby, is what's worth it to you as the individual, versus looking at other people that have maybe better gear or different gear. And that's a thing that's tough to discuss, because do you have that desire to keep up with the Joneses kind of thing, and is that what you're in it for? And it's difficult, right? Like, you want to be able to present these things in a way that's not, from my point of view anyways, I want to present them in a thing is how are they performing, and if I like it or not. That's basically how I do all my things. This is from my experiences and my viewpoints and my biases, my preferences, and that kind of thing. And my worth is or a thing that I find extremely valuable might not be extremely valuable to some people, and it might be on par with other people, and then other people would be like, oh, why would you even spend money on that? I'd rather get this other thing that's exponentially more expensive, that kind of thing. Except Brass. So while I'm kind of talking about this, throw some questions or thoughts regarding that. Yeah, I don't want the minimalist, but no, there's a thing like that too. Like, the minimalist, that's another factor, right? Like, you can get away with complete enjoyment with just a DAP and or even a dongle and a pair of decent headphones, or even like these. Like, I know plenty of people that have Cost Porter Pros that's all they ever need. Or even people that have just use AirPods for it. Like I know plenty of people that aren't necessarily into audio hobby in the headphone space or speakers or anything like that, but they they do the consumer stuff and they're totally happy with that. So there's also that factor as well. And I think it really comes down to the individual. And so when someone says, this is worth it, you have to remember that that's worth it to them, right? And that's based on all of their biases, all of their uh, all of the things that are going on in their lives, kind of thing, right? So you have to make sure when you're watching some of these things and or reading about these things is that's a thing. I'm saying thing a lot. That is something that we have, Cessna Ranger, that needs to be taken into account, because my worth is not, once again, going to play into many other people's. It might align, might not. It's one of those things. Yeah, and exactly, like, so super, like, that's another thing. Like, you can also, like, I can't count the times I've been on like a road trip or work or traveling where like these plenty happy, like just stoked, happy listening to music, totally stoked. um yeah, exactly. um Cables, that might be not be a thing that people will be looking like, what the heck, why would you spend that money on a cable? But then another person will spend literally tens of thousands of dollars on a cable. It's and I agree, like, that to me is like, that's crazy. But at the same time, I don't want to belittle or detract from those people's experiences because I think it's crazy, or that, you know what I mean. That's kind of where it is. Lone Star. Um, so that's one of those things that kind of plays in to the enjoyment of the hobby as well. Is sometimes you want to maybe pull yourself away from keeping up with the Joneses and then kind of focus on you, right? Like, focus on what makes you happy. And if that's, and when you find that, who cares what anybody else thinks, at the end of the day, right? Because those are, that your joy is your joy. Like, that's the thing that at the end of the day is going to make you come home, listen to your music, or and it de-stresses you, or lets you kind of forget some things, or whatever you use music for in your life. Like, I personally use it as a means to de-stress, or to kind of like calm down, or bring myself into a mood, or all sorts of things. I use it for working out, for getting it pumped up. I use it for on a road trip to pass the time. I use it to just entertainment, pure entertainment, just have in the background. At the end of the day, to de-stress and just kind of forget about stuff and have some whiskey and relax. So the those things all tie in, and then the experience of having a thing that, like Martin was saying, that just works and is something that upgrades that experience for you. And that could be anything from the way it looks to the way it feels to all those types of deals, right? So that's something to take into account. And so you can also go into like the space of like, for some people, this one just came out and I think, well, come on, you can do it. That this is a fantastic headphone. And is it better than this one? I mean, at the end of the day, that's up to the individual. But they're pretty big price gap difference, right? And depending on what your preference is on color, to what your income level is, to all this other stuff, it could color the way you view something as worth it. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss on some level. So, yeah, I mean, these are fantastic. There's something to be said about a Cost Porter Pro with Yaxi pads, and then like I love the purple ones. Hopefully they Yaxi brings them to market here soon. I know that I think they're planning on it soon. I just don't know when. So hopefully soon, because I would like to get another set or two, because they are really, really nice. I like the way they look a lot, and I want to get some more Porter Pros and get some more purple on those. But that was kind of what my rant was for today. Basically, I wanted to do like a quick little like spiel on like worth and value, and then kind of get you like the live chat in on it and see what you guys' thoughts on it, and then we can snowball to other topics and stuff like that. But mostly just like a discussion on that, and like you see all the time in different forums and different spaces where people will will get angry and mad and get really like they take it very personal when someone buys something that's expensive, for instance, or they buy something that's cheap and or something in the middle. Like it's weird how some people get so like aggravated at other people's purchases. And that's something that's kind of interesting to me. Like why? I mean, I know why, it's humanity. People do it, but at the same time, it seems like the more people can maybe focus on themselves and focus on the joy that that's bringing to that individual versus themselves or what they have. I mean, that's something that I would like to see more of. So let's see here. I think we got some questions going. Silver headphone cables are not worth it for me. I do think that cables are a whole nother bag. That's something that's, I find value in cables for the neck candy aspect of it, if that makes sense. For me personally, I'll splurge on a set for that aspect, for like the neck jewelry and the feel of it and the quality. I have an Empyrean, Aria, and Z1R, but for Millville and shopping, yeah, TR exactly. Like there's I think there's stages or there's places for where that worth it is, right? Like on the go, the cost porter pros are great for on the go, worth it for me. I have a pair of Mest. I have a pair of these I have Andromeda Golds for IEMs. I'm not really a big IEM guy, but I have some things that work that I like, Let's see. If you'd like to travel all over the world, what set would you choose to take with you? If I was traveling all over the world, honestly, like just because I know it's easy, I'd probably buy a couple of sets of these and just stash them in my luggage because I wouldn't worry about breaking them. I wouldn't worry about if they got stolen or lost or broken or any of that kind of stuff. They do the job. They sound great, and I'm not really stressed about them, if that makes sense. And that's what I would probably go with. Let's see. I have a formula is now, and it does sound much better through my LCD4s and the floor. Well, my phone rate would still be close to a $2,000 upgrade. Not needs. Yeah, and there's that too. Like you have these things where what's the upgrade? Is that worth it? And you have to research, and you have to look at it, and you have to hear it, and then so there's all sorts of stuff. Like, and then you have to determine, is that even within my budget to be worthwhile? And like for me personally, I'm not a big fan of going into debt for any hobby. Really, I prefer to. And I was young enough to make a lot of bad mistakes with money to where I could course correct in my later years and be able to bring myself to a debt-free position, right? So that was something I did, but I do like to avoid using credit for any of my hobbies if I can do it without it. But that being said, if it's something that will, this is me personally, I will put things on. If it's a zero interest for like a year, for instance, I'll do stuff like that just because why not? It's zero interest. It's basically, pay to play. And especially if it's something that will actually make you money in the long run, there's also that, like that's that tools and is it going to upgrade your life, that kind of thing. Is it worth it explaining to your wife? That's always never. It's never going to be worth it. I can already tell you right now, audio full. And yeah, if it looks better, it must be better. There is some levels of that, but not always. Yeah, and then should value be linked to performance cost ratio? And that's a good question. Because value, and that's where I think there's this detraction. What's up, Android, by the way? What's up, Ben? Or both Bens, Drift. So should value be linked to performance and everything like that? In certain cases, sure. If there's multiple headphones that are performing and have a quality of similar ilk or style or what have you, and maybe one is performing a little bit better, but it's twice the cost, then yeah, I would say then price and performance for me would come into play, right? But it also depends on the quality of the build and that kind of thing, and where are the materials, those types of deals. So that's when I think cost performance for me matters, but not always. Sometimes, I'll spend, like for instance, I personally think that the ZMS are well worth it because to me they're art, right? Like they both sound fantastic and they're handcrafted pieces of art to me, and I really enjoy them. So there's something like that, like where that's one of my biases coming into play where I'll spend a little bit more. uh, yeah, I would say worth is more, like, I agree, Ace, but is more linked to use case preferences and budget. Yes. It goes from there. And is that whiskey? No, it's actually a London Fog. I'm actually drinking London Fog. So also doing to get Stelia, but trying to convince myself it's not worth compared to Arya and Empyrean. Yeah, I mean, and that's something that perfect example, right? Like, so there's something that you might want, but then you have to determine for yourself, is it worth that cost to get it, right? And that's something that it's like in itself your own, right? Like for me, I'll listen to a thing, and if I can't get it out of my head after it's gone, then I know that there's something there that I should probably maybe look at it a little bit deeper and see if I need to pursue it and purchase it, or if it's something else. That's how my brain works. Is once something's gone, do I still want it, right? Like that's something that I think about, and I'm lucky enough to be able to hear a lot of stuff, and so there's that, but that's something I think that's something how I would judge a lot of those things. I'm so I get angry quite a lot. I know these feels. I actually had a lot of anger management been myself growing up. It's why I have such a nice, lovely, beautiful nose that's nice and crooked and crazy. Nice little scars and stuff. Anyways, this as far as worth it, right? Oh, I skipped drifts. I think there's probably certain tiers depending on what people can afford. To me, there's a 1 to 1,000, a 1 to 5,000, and a 5,000 plus levels based on our SRAF group. Yeah, and so there's that as well. There's certain levels where people will have different, like some people's mid tier is like $2,000, right? And then you go to somewhere else in a different form, a different group, and their mid tier is a Cost Porter Pro at $50, and their high tier is $100 to $200, or the HD 600s or 6XXs or 650s, and so, or the Sundara, like that would be top tier. Like there's these other little groups that you have to think about, like that, depending on how they think or their budgets or their what their mindsets, preferences, biases, all that kind of stuff comes into play, will play into it. But I agree. Like, so for me, mid tier to me, because I scaled pretty high. I mean, you can go from from something like the COS to something like the SR1A, or come on, there you go, SR1As to the Susvara or Utopia, and those are different beasts, right? Like that's completely different levels, and I definitively hear a difference between like this to that, 100%. So it's one of those things, like what, and everything in between those things, like where what's good enough, and could I sell everything right now and then just be happy with like one pair of headphones and one amp, and just that's that? Most definitely. I could probably pick one of these and a DAC amp and be done and be happy and not do this anymore. But I don't want to. I enjoy this. It's something I enjoy doing, right? So that's and I have the means to continue doing it, or the capability to continue doing it. So that's where I'm at with that. I use credit for all my purchases and use PayPal for selling. Free 1.5% off. And see, there's that too. Like you can usually use those kind of tricks too. Like I do the same. I use a credit card for everything. And then I take those, but I pay it off instantly. And then I take the points to buy frivolous Amazon things or other random stuff, or I'll buy like whatever product's available on that point system. So yeah. Yeah, Josh, exactly. 0 interest for a year, then cash buy otherwise. I'm with that. That's how I usually do most of my stuff. And well, I usually, like I said, I usually pay everything with a credit card, but I pay it off instantly, so I don't have to pay any interest on it. What's my biggest purchase mistake in audio? There's been a couple, definitely a couple. Probably the M1060s was one. The monolith. I followed some advice when I was first getting into this hobby. So the M1060s were one. I enjoyed them at the time, but then now looking back, but I rapidly outgrew them. They were fun to mod. And then, hey, Eskimo Bob, JTV, by the way, Sheldon, Chris, Brandon, thank you all for joining. Kevin, what's going on? And Jack, thank you for joining me. But yeah, I'd say the M1060s were definitely one that was kind of like, it was fun to mod them. It was worth the experience to have them and to buy them, but those were probably some of my first mistakes, not worth purchasing for myself. But not really, because at the end of the day, they were experiences and they were things that allowed me to grow and find new targets and play with. I mean, I have a pair of modded open back. I have the LCD, or the mono price M1060 clothes that I modded to be open back, and I wouldn't get rid of them. I'd probably give them to my brother or something, because I had I did a custom open back grill thing that has like a special quote that means that's the only reason I'm keeping it. There's a little embedded quote on the open back that's important to me, and my brother. But so outside of those, I would say, see, that's tough for me because I'm a big experience guy. So for me, every experience is generally worth it, even bad ones, because they allow you to experience a thing, right? And to learn and to grow and to know more, right? So that to me, it's really tough to say something's like not necessarily worth it, but that would be where I'd probably put it, is something along those lines. Let's see. There's KZ2, like Ant says, and there's also there's the whole, like, you go into IMs and they are on a race to the bottom as far as the cheapest and highest performance you can get. It's crazy with IEMs. So that's, yeah, Android, like the KZ stuff. Aesthetics are important. I agree. I'm actually very big on aesthetics. I find aesthetics to be very important, and they factor heavily into my purchasing and what I would look into. It's kind of like, anything, right? The first thing you're gonna do is see something, so that's gonna be the first impression you have, is gonna be aesthetics. And so if the aesthetics don't grab you right off the bat, you're gonna have to rely on the ability of the other factors that come into play. But if the aesthetics is that first impression factor, right? Like if it doesn't pull you in with that first impression, there's a good chance you're not gonna even pursue even listening to it, possibly, unless you hear a ton of great stuff about it. So, I mean, that's how I was with the Stellia, to be honest with you. The Stellia, I was instantly like, like, I don't like the colorway. I just don't. But then I actually got the chance to hear it for an extended period of time, and I was like, these are lovely. They sound fantastic. And then as they sat here and I had them, my own set, they grew on me. Like, I can appreciate the colorway. I can appreciate the look and go from there. So let's see here. I gave you a shout out, Kevin. And yeah, my friends think I'm a psychopath for Hobbit. Yeah, my friends as well. Like, I actually have one buddy he's into audio, right? But he's into the standard commercial audio. Like, he gets the Sonys, he gets the basic stuff, and then from there he just I let him come and try a bunch of my headphones, from the HD800s to the Rawls to the all my stuff, right? And he definitively is like, these sound fantastic. And then I tell him how much, and he goes, not for me. So there's that worth, right? To him, it's not worth it. So it is what it is. And then, so here you go, Chris. You either have the mojo or you don't. If you're chasing the mojo, whatever gets you the mojo is worth it. Whatever doesn't get you the mojo isn't worth it. Yeah, exactly. Like, at the end of the day, whatever brings you joy, or whatever brings you that peace, or whatever that chain of audio it is. Like, I mean, I could find it. Like, it's been a while. I really miss going to traveling and stuff. But I mean, I remember sitting on a beach with my DAP and my Cos Porter Pros and watching the waves come in the sunrise, and just, it was freaking amazing. It was one of the most lovely experiences ever, listening to my music and just having the ocean and the smells and the whole, like, the sun coming up, and fantastic, right? So there's also that, like, so that to me, that was priceless. And those were brought to me by a set of less than $50 headphones. So I mean, there's those things too. Those experiences bring in some pretty cool things, and that's that worth piece as well. Like, so they well paid for themselves over and over and over and over again. Yeah, Sheldon, exactly. One person's trash, and that goes even further. So like, and that goes in tiers as well. That one person's trash, another person's treasure, and it goes all the way up to people that are spending millions of dollars on speakers, or hundreds of thousands on speaker cables. Like they'll look down at these other people that have $10,000 or $50,000 speakers and whatever, and be like, why would you even buy that? And sometimes people forget that they are in a place of higher means and can and so I think that's another factor that kind of plays into it. But also the reverse of that, some people that can't afford those things will then negate them by saying that they're not worth it, right? But that's not fair either. So it's not fair on either end of those conversations. What's up, David, Joshua, MD Frick, what's going on? Let's see. Not much. Yes, we're just talking about worth and value. More of a Q&A, and this was kind of my rant for the day. Is I wanted to talk about like what Q&A about worth and value of a headphone, and how I think that sometimes when people ask myself or other reviewers or other people, is it worth it? It's kind of a bad metric to measure, because that thing is worth it to that person individually. And it's tough. Like I think that's going to skew things too much in a different way, because that's, everyone has different measurements for how they determine something's worth or value to them. Do I believe there are diminishing marginal returns in hi-fi headphones, amp jacks? The further up you go in the price, the less the benefit improve. Yes, Ace of Spades. I will say this: there's certain points. I'd say it depends. It varies. But everything I've heard, everything is kind of, eventually it slowly turns into this different flavors, right? That's what it ends up turning into. Instead of performing less or technically not as capable, that they're all technically capable. It's just that they're giving you different viewpoints on your music, or like, I don't know, like, so for instance, like one headphone will be a little bit more detail oriented, or maybe one's faster, maybe one has an extreme stage. And then same thing with DACs, amps. At a certain point, one will have more power, they'll maybe have a little more flavor to the mid-range, or if you have tubes, that's a whole another bag of chips that you can go down. But yeah, there's a certain point where you're chasing very small margins for a lot of money. So there's something to be said about that as well. And that's up to the individual to determine if that's even worth pursuing. Like, right, are you chasing the dragon just to chase the dragon and to say you have the best of the best of the best? Or have you heard something that now made you go, oh wow, I need that now, right? Because once heard can't be unheard, or once seen can't be unseen, kind of thing, right? But yeah, I do think that there is a certain plateau, more or less, of performance capabilities where generally everything's going to be pretty dang good. Like anything you get above, honestly, anything you get above even a couple $100 when you actually think about it is going to be performing really decently. They're going to present sound to you. So I don't know. You just have to determine that worth at that point. Let's see. I've seen plenty of tier lists online. However, I've yet to see a tier list solely based on technical performance, not on value. And that's something that, see, I agree, Jack. That's something I would say is a big factor, right? Because personally, I would say the top of the top performer for me, like this, just technically amazing as far as a headphone. Like it's just A grade, or not A grade. I guess what's the new tier list? Is it SS is like the top? So I'd say I'd put these, probably the Susvara and the Utopia. Those are the top 3 headphones that to me are SS. Like are like they are just the peak of technology performance for headphones. And I would say even the SR1As are technically not headphones, but even though they are. But I mean, that's something to also think about, right? I just realized my mic was pretty far away. Let's see here. Have you seen Planet? What do you think are the worst performance to cost ratio headphone, and why is it Hi-Fi? So the Hi-Fi, in all truth, like I think Hi-Fi perform pretty good. Like I just personally am not a fan, and there's multiple biases for myself for why I'm not a fan of the Hi-Fi. I think the Susvara was a fantastic performer. Like I just said, it's up in the SS range for me as far as like the top tier list, as far as performance goes. I'm not a fan of the build. I'm not a fan of the like the some of the statements that have come out of the company, and I know they're turning around and stuff like that. But I've witnessed some things personally and seen some things where I was just like, it turned me off from Hyperman. So that's my own personal bias, and that's a different thing. But so worst price to performance ratios. I mean, there's actually a lot. Actually, there's a ton of worst price to performance ratios in the sense of like things that are just way overpriced for the value. This is going to be pretty. I don't know. Like some people are going to get angry about this, but I think that the Mez Empyrean is a perfect example of something that's. They put a lot of value into the aesthetics and comfort of that headphone, and then but for me personally, the performance isn't to the level of its price point, and so that's one that I would say is not for me personally. I know there's plenty of people that love that headphone, and that's great, and I think that's amazing, that's awesome, and you should continue enjoying that. But just for me personally, I would say that's one for me where it's not the value proposition. I watched your Celeste stream and definitely agree that, yeah, aesthetics factor, man. Like once I mean, it's the first interaction you're gonna have with a set of gear most of the time, and so it's one of those things where it's your first impression, right? And first impressions matter. Electronic is not to be most money I'd ever spent on headphones was $200, $300, 6X and 260p. Were favorites and didn't think it could get much better. Then I heard the Arias and I couldn't believe them. Yes, Kyle. So here's another thing. In fact, there was a couple streams back where Taryn from Headphones was joking about how he remembers in the forum, like me talking about how it was so hard for me to go above $1,000 for a piece of gear. Like it was really hard. Like I was just like, oh, I can't believe like how it can't be that much better. But then once you do that, it's this weird, also it just the floodgates open, and then you're on a whole nother chain. So yeah, and it does, like once you actually do hear those things, like I heard the Utopias, I heard all these things, and I was just like, I was going from like the Ulex to the Utopia to, you know, and it was just like, it was crazy, some of the capabilities that once you hear these things on really good chains, and it's there's something to be said about it for sure. And there's a reason why people pursue these things, is because they hear those things and then they get so enraptured with it that they have to continue pursuing them. Let's see here. I just bought them over 1K on headphones, so this was point of higher flagships are that much better. I almost don't want to know. And that's up to you, Kyle. I'm not a fan of the Hyperman stuff. I think for me that they're too. I'm not a fan of the way they do that. I think it's the image separation. It's just so sharp and it's so crisp, and sometimes it can be a little bit bright. For me personally, that there's something with the Hi-Fi signature and the way they do the frequency ranges, that all of them have been this thing for me there, where there's a certain point where they're right on the edge of being sibilant to me, and it just doesn't agree with me. So that's another reason why I'm not a big fan of Hi-Fi. But that's me. That's an anatomy thing too. So that's a bias and preference on top of everything else. But I do think that for me personally, if you like the Arias and you don't want to spend money, don't listen to SR1As. Or the Utopias. Let's see here. What is your opinion on EQing? Recall some software. Guru created EQ software, which Jude from Headfire also advertised in CanJam. That could mimic. I'm not a big fan of EQ. I think if you do it in really small terms, or if it's analog EQ, like the Loki, the shit Loki or something like that, I can deal with those usually. But whenever I've dove into EQ, it always seemed like something was off. And maybe I'm just not the best at EQing personally, and that could be a factor. But I just never really enjoyed it. I never enjoyed EQing. I never enjoyed. I'm a kind of a purist, or I like this thing was made this way, so that's the way it should be performing. I do tubes, and that's a form of tube rolling, or you'd have different DACs and amps, and that's another form of EQ, I guess, in its own way, and finding a synergy. But if you're into EQ, that's cool. The software you're talking about, I think I've tried that before, and that one I didn't like, because then it became, I think for that one specifically, everything became compressed, and I didn't like the sound signature of it. It could have gotten better. I don't know, but that's one of my things. I never really enjoyed. That's part of why I never really enjoyed EQ. And I'm also, I think I'm at the end of the day more of a purist, and I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to have to sit there for an hour playing with EQ and to get the to see if I can hear a difference, or I don't know. I'd rather just plug in and go and listen to my music and just get right to it. Needs slam. Yeah, there's also that. Like that's why I have multiple headphones. There's some headphones I enjoy that have that slam, that punch, and that visceral nature to them, and there's other ones that have a lighter touch but have that kind of euphoric nature where you kind of get that not euphoric. There's a word I'm think of, like the shimmeriness to it, right? Or like the wow, I can't think of the word. Brain not working for me today. But yeah, there's different headphones provide different aspects to different music I like to listen to, and I listen to all those sorts of music, so I'm all over the place. What is your? Does anyone have any experience with the new 300B preamp from Bottlehead? I do not. Sorry. First audiophile purchase was my Tiger 300R. I still need to get one of those to check out. The Zeus. I actually thought the Zeus was really good, by the way, Skeeb. Yeah, Clear MG. I'm looking forward to seeing one of those and getting one of those in as well. I haven't heard one, but I know people that have. So it'll be interesting to get that one in and hear it. Yeah, there's that plateau, and then all of a sudden there's always another plateau. There's always someone bigger and better and badder, always, in all things in life. The AB, Dios, the AB Tosios is not SS. So with the Abyss stuff, I've only had limited interaction with it, so that mine would be that level, like right where I'm basing it off of my experiences, and I've heard them, but I've never heard them for long enough to really put them into a place where I would be comfortable putting them, if that makes sense. And sorry, saying he's only used it. Yeah. Or Ben Aaron, yeah, perfect. Try to find an open back headphone with 3.5mm input for a mic in gaming music and price around $300. Any shit. There's a couple. Honestly, if you're looking for something for gaming, I'd almost just recommend that going to Drop and getting the HD. Was it 38X or 37X? Any of those two, and just go that route, man. At the end of the day. And also, yeah, Brandon Hyferman. I'm also not a fan of the look of the Hyfermans. Never really have been. Ultrasound has the worst price to perform. There you go. I've only heard Ultrasound like once or twice, and I can't really talk about Tim, that hopefully the Yaxi are gonna be putting them out soon to market. We'll see. Hopefully, yeah, that would look fantastic on the 25th anniversary Porter Pro. I confuse why audiophiles are in two camps, either IM headphone camp or 2-channel speaker camp. I enjoy both. Yeah, I'm actually. I think so. How I was actually going towards the speaker route, and then I had my daughter, and I wanted to play games, listen to movies, and what have you. And then so I got into headphones more and more. And I always had headphones for gaming, but they were always gaming headphones. And it's funny, once you go away from gaming headphones into real headphones, it's a big difference. But that was what facilitated me or pushed me towards. Oh, the Mobius, yeah, good one, Tim. I actually have the Mobius up here. I always forget to charge it and use it. But anyways, that's what got me into headphones, and then I went down the rabbit hole of headphones, and then now I'm here doing this. But I just got a pair of Kef Metas, LS50 Metas, and love those. They are amazing, and I love them. And now I want to hear more speakers, and I think speakers are. I think there's a place for both, and they do different things. Same with IEMs, right? I think IEMs present a different experience than headphones do, and then speakers do. So with that being said, I think I don't understand either why there's multiple camps of like, oh, you're only this or that. That in life there should never be stuff like that. Life's too dynamic, man. There's too many things going on. There's too many preferences, and there's so many other experiences to be had. So why limit yourself to just one of those? Any experiences with the Pendant? Yes, love the Pendant. Pendant is fantastic. It's one of my favorite tube amps. It's more of a neutral tube amp. I haven't heard the newest one that they're being produced. I know they did a bunch of upgrades to it. Got it right in my mustache. But the Pendant to me is a fantastic tube amp. It's more on the neutral side. Can play well with a lot of different headphones. it's not your traditional like super tubey gooiness, uh, but it's fast. It sounds excellent, and it gives you enough of that tube flavor to really keep you going. And it looks fantastic too. Justin does a fantastic job with those, making those from Amps and Sound. Want a good bass? Yeah, that's a good one. If you like, especially for high impedance headphones. Do you have any experience of Audio God? I've had an Audio God all-in-one. I can't remember which one it was, and I thought it was okay. I know they've had a lot of controversy over the years, and I don't know how they are now, what their gear is like now. But I thought the one I had at the time was decent, but then when I got something better, I definitely noticed that the Audio God was not as good as, like, say, the Otenheim with a shit DAC. PC3X at 245 Canadian. That's up to you, man, if it's worth it for you at that price. There's that one, the PC3X is really good for music as well, from my opinion, for the price point. Has one of the best mics you can get. The problem is I wouldn't necessarily wear them out and about. It's more of an inside house because you have that big headphone or a microphone that you have to pull down. If you're into console if you're into console gaming, PC gaming, it's a really excellent little headphone. Do I think there's other things that are really good as well? For under $200, $300, it's tough. I would say for that price range, you're really going to be hard pressed to find something better than those two for gaming specifically. And then those actually do perform pretty decently for music as well. I'd say they're not quite as good as, say, like an HD 650 or something like that, but they're doing different things. So I think it's up to you on your preference and if it's worth it or not. But yeah, like the Mobius is another fun one. I really enjoyed the Mobius. That one's more of the tricks for that one are the DSP stuff and the digital stuff. Yeah, 12.6 has some pretty interesting aesthetics. I love sharing my speakers with the girlfriend and kiddo, but when they're sleeping, headphones all night. Yep, I'm with you right there, Snow Ranger. I'm in the same boat, so that's how I usually do. Like during the day, I'll have my speakers downstairs, I'll have my laptop doing photo edits and stuff. Unless they're heavy duty, then I come upstairs and I'll do my bigger rig for photo editing or video editing now. But yeah, I prefer to listen to music on my stereo when I'm kind of doing mindless stuff. Not mindless stuff. When I'm working on other things that I need to focus on working, I like speakers better. Let's see. And kids change everything. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Pre-kids, I was diving in towards speakers, and then we sold everything. Got rid of all my speakers, went down to like some cheapo sound bar and some other stuff just because we never used it. Yeah, and then now I'm back to getting into speakers a little bit more. So, and hopefully, eventually we'll get a better setup for that. Because right now my setup for speakers is not good, in the sense of like room placement and even like our media stand. It's just I want to have a better setup or a dedicated listening space for speakers. Lone Star. This is also true. So his statement, I think price performance of headphones compared to speakers is significantly higher, and this is definitely there. A total like Susvara even. So I think Susvara is still currently like the most expensive headphone you can get outside of like super niche things with like diamonds and gold and whatever. But that one I think MSRP for that $6,000. And for like the same level of performance, not really the same, but like for like a total speaker setup, you can go up to millions of dollars for like a 2-channel setup. And so there's that factor as well, where you can hit total at a much cheaper price point. That being said, for $6,000, you can also get a pretty badass 2.1 channel stereo setup with amp, with DAC, with there's plenty of things you can do there. And then IEMs. IEMs are even better price performance than headphones technically. Like you can get a $3,000 IEM top of the line, like the Odin, Empire Ears Odin, which is fantastic IEM, and that's half the cost of us thus far. So yeah. Looked into Lear 3 that you recommended last stream. Was wondering if it was worth the additional couple $100 over the Asgard, since I heard that was hard to beat. That's tough. Ceiling for 800s, by the way. I do think that the 800s do sound or perform better off of tubes, but I think with the Asgard, they'll be fine, and you can always save up and get. I don't want to. Depends on what you're using and what your music you like to listen to. I personally think I would go with the Lear, just because you're going to get that. The AC100s they open up a little bit more with tubes at the end of the day, in my experience. So there's that. So and it's tough to recommend something that's more expensive, obviously. And then also you have to deal with the fact that there's tubes. You can, in the Lear 3, I don't recall there being too much tube rolling you can do with it, where it's going to be factored heavily. But they do tube roll, so there's that too. So you can get a little bit different flavors with different tubes. But the Asgard's fantastic at the same time, and it's cheaper. So you can either save up, get that, and then wait a year, save up, and get something down the road when it's more. Or you find a deal or something. There's two ways of looking at it. Either that's how I would value it. Where are you at financially? If it's easier to get the Asgard now, it's a fantastic amp, and I wouldn't say otherwise. And if you want to kind of pursue a little bit further, but not maybe spend down the road, I would say the Lear 3 is really fantastic, and will give you that extra little bit of flavor that the H800s tend to take well to. Let's see. Wait, how come you don't own a pendant then? Because I've been on back and forth with this is that worth thing, right? So I have a K&N HA1A Mark II, and when I compared the pendant to that one, the pendant was better, definitively better, and was worth the price point. But at the end of the day, that's a neutral tube amp, and if I'm going to get a tube amp, I already have a neutral tube amp, and I'd wanted to get something more proper tubey, if that makes sense, like maybe one of the Mogwai SEs, or I was looking at some of the K&N stuff, but that's why I didn't get the pendant, was because I already kind of had that niche filled, and it at the time just didn't make sense. But I do love them, and I'd love to hear the new one. And maybe that would change my mind. But at the end of the day, that was the reason why I didn't end up buying the pendant. The amp from SPL. Are you talking about the Phonitor? I think that's probably, to me, that's one of the best solid states you can get. But it's a solid state, so there's that as well. There's some quirks with it as well. There's the single-ended isn't protected, so you have to be real careful with if you're swapping headphones or plugging and unplugging while music's playing. Don't do that. So that's another factor with those. But I mean, to me, I still have mine. I keep going on the fence about selling it, but I enjoy it. Whenever time I do listen to it, I really enjoy it. So it's hard for me to get rid of. And then mine has some wear and tear that would make it difficult to sell. I use Mod Mic wireless with my Sony's. Yeah, there you go. Mod mics are actually another perfect example of something to use for gaming. Instead of getting a dedicated gaming headset, you can get a mod mic set up for something. Already have an Ananda. Wait, SR1A are the next step up from Aria. No, they're not the next step up from the Aria. There's plenty of stuff in between, and you can get the headphones. I think I have them sitting over here somewhere. There's the heck, you can even go back and go to find a deal on the HE6SE. I think Adorama has deals on those. You need a more powerful amp, but that's another option to go route there. There's the any of the Focal lineup. You can go Clears to all the way up, or even the Celeste to Stelia to the Utopias. There's plenty of other things to go and pursue as far as the Aria is concerned. Even the HG800 is another option. HG800's a very similar performer, and they both throw the stage really wide. In fact, I think the Aria is like the HG800 of the planar world. but the HD100 does do certain things like the dynamics and other things that make it kind of unique. Might be another option, but it really at that point you're side grading pretty hard, if that makes sense. And yes, the yes, the SR1A requires a specific amp. You can get the Jotunheim R, which is from shit, or you need to get a speaker amp, and it comes with an interface for speaker amps. So it needs a lot of power. So the Ananda up to the LCDX. I would say the LCDX is a fantastic headphone. If outside of the LCDX, I would look at Clears, the Aeolus from ZMF, or Icon even. Those are some really good options in that range. Even the LCD GX is a fantastic. I know it's a gaming headphone, but that one's actually a really fantastic audio headphone. In my experience. That's I tried incorporating my SR1A with my home theater, and it was the craziest experience I had on it. Yeah, so Jack, I've actually done it too. I've actually put a sub with my SR1A, and it's like having a 2.1 channel listening experience full on. It's pretty cool. Curious if his Signature and Diablo are a huge leap over the Black Label. The Diablo, I would say, is excellent for it has a lot of power, so it's really good for demanding headphones. I wouldn't necessarily pair it with like the Focals on a regular basis, because you only need to turn the volume so much, and there's a little bit of channel imbalance, like all things in the very beginning, and you're flirting with that channel imbalance to where they're loud enough with certain low impedance headphones. I think that the Diablo is fantastic for an option for certain planars. Like a lot of planars would be really good with the Diablo. And the Signature would probably be really good for these with the Focals and that kind of stuff. I think the Signature is actually the traditional upgrade to the Black Label, whereas the Diablo is a special, unique case where it's just a ton of power. You can use it with powered speakers as a preamp and DAC, and then volume control, of course. But I think that's the big difference there. Are they upgrades? I would say to me the Diablo is a little more bright sounding than others, than the Black Label. I'm used to the Burr Brown being a little bit warm, and that's the Diablo is a little bit brighter. On planars specifically, yeah, if you're looking for planars specifically, yeah, I'd say the LCDX is a great one, good option, and it would be a next step up. And then beyond that, the Aria. Means you need to get them all. Yeah, probably need to get some amps and sound stuff in. Yeah, I would say, yeah, Sheldon, agree. For HD100, at the end of the day, it's so magical with tubes that it's just it's hard for me to recommend a solid state. But if you do go solid state, I would recommend something from shit, because they tend to skew warmer, which helps with the HD100's presentation, in my experience and thoughts, what have you. Decaware, those are fantastic, by the way. Chris, I think those are beautiful. That's actually another one that I was looking at pretty hard instead of the pendant, and that's part of the reason why I didn't buy the pendant, because I was looking at Decaware stuff, I was looking at amps and sound stuff, and then life happened and some other things came into play, so I just never ended up going down that route. Also, I think I missed Tim's TNA. That's the TNA new headphone. It's interesting. It's been getting a lot of praise in the higher echelons of things, and they make some pretty crazy gear. And then P for Pho. What's going on, man? Clears are one of the best headphones I've heard so far. Yeah, the Clears I also agree are fantastic. My only real big gripe with the Clears is the colorway. The way they did the pads and the upper part of the suede type deal, was it discolors over time, and it just can be weird. And that was my only big concern or issue with the Clears. Yeah. And oh yeah, that's the thing. If you're into EQ, the LCDXs and most planars actually tend to take to EQ a lot better than dynamic driver ones, and that might be why I'm not big on EQ, is because I tend to skew towards dynamic drivers rather than planars. As another thing, heads up. Recently got the Clear MG Pro. Like them, yeah, very nice. Those are beautiful. I think those are. I really like the new styling that they've been doing with Focal. I'm really digging the new style. Do you think tube hybrids still can have some tube match? Yes, 100%. In fact, my number one amp right now, Snow Ranger, is the Unobtainium now, but I think they're working on a new way forward with it. Is the ECP T4 headphone amplifier, which is a tube hybrid, and that thing is really lovely. Not the most powerful tube amp, but it's a hybrid, tube hybrid amp, but it does its job, and it sounds really good. I really enjoy that one. So there's plenty of tube hybrids that do have that good, not full tube sound, but they add plenty of it to really bring the magic, if that makes sense. Yeah, I love my RME as well. That's the one that I was using for EQ. Now I don't really like doing the EQ and the software on the computer, but I do enjoy it on the RME. But that's another one I'd spend forever. I'd spend like an hour plus EQing with that thing, and because there's so many things you can do with it. But yeah, it's a good one. It's a good DAC for that. I'm looking for closebacks since Aria is so open. Any closebacks with most amount of slam? Headache inducing slam. Up to 50. I would say look at the icons. I'd say that's a good one from ZMF. Facts. The Cascades, Campfire Audio Cascades. Do I have them nearby? I don't know if I have them. Actually, I do have them here. One sec. You can look at the Cascades. Campfire Audio Cascades. The TH900s are another option. From Fostex, or there's the Emu Teaks, I believe. But for proper slam, I'd say the THX900s. These things are bass cannon. Come on, you can do it. There you go. These things are bass cannons. I have the XL pads on them, so they are a little bit bigger pads to fit over your ear. I also have the. Do I have them in here? No. I have there's like a cloth version, and then I have the standard pads. The standard pads basically almost fit the cup size. So, and then another thing with these though, really nice metal. But I did over time on certain, I don't know, it was weird. It only crop up every once in a while, but I would get a hot spot with this headband. But they're pretty portable. They fold up, and they come with a pretty cool little case. That's for the Campfire Cascades for bass. But yeah, the Fostex 900s would be another option for under that price range for bass. Mark IIs, I believe. What other bass can and close back? Yeah, the Icons would be another option. But yeah, depends on how portable you want to go. Yeah, hey, be happy. I mean, it's all about time, man. Time and patience, and eventually get there. Get the gear, save up, get the gear you want. Decaware, yeah, I really like the Decaware look aesthetically, and then I've heard them only in show and demo scenarios, but I really like them a lot. Bifrost Jot for Celeste and Icon, or any other recommendations? Those are fantastic. Those are great. Asgard. The Celeste doesn't really take much. It doesn't need much to power, so it's you can do a lot with that. You have a lot of leeway there. They actually sound really good off of a low Z tube hybrid as well. So plenty of options in that realm. Too many to even kind of list. So let's see here. Curtis, the Lear 3 breaking headphones. I have heard of that in their I don't know if it was a Lear 3, but I know the previous Lears and previous shit products had some issues over time. I haven't heard about the Lear 3s yet. I haven't really been on the socials this week though. But I haven't. Everyone that I know that has Lear 3 hasn't had any issues with it. And shit's really good about their customer service. They have really good customer service, so that's something to be aware of and take into account. Oh wow, we are already at an hour. This turned into a initial rant into a long Q&A here. Let's see. I'll go through the last few questions here, and I'll let you guys go. Here's you guys. Okay, yep. In my experience, planars can handle EQ bass boost a lot. But yes, I agree, Pelpan. The planars do handle EQ a lot better, especially in the bass region. They do really do well. They do really well with EQ. They can take bigger swings as well of EQ. Hey, thanks, Dave, for joining. I hope you have a great weekend as well. I'm having my brother and niece coming up, so it's going to be a last minute. They decided to show up tomorrow, so my weekend just got completely thrown into a different path than I had initially planned. But it should be fun. I love hanging out with my brother and my niece. So, tiresome bursts and stuff. David Joshua, I am actually hopefully I can get I think I might have a line on some bursts and stuff in the future, so hopefully I will get that in and I can do my thoughts on those. I hear a lot of great things about the bursts and stuff. Yeah, the display is pretty small. Still fantastic. I love the EQ meter on that thing. Vocal made a makeover on Clear. Does that mean an upcoming Utopia makeover? I don't know, Jack, regarding the Utopia, but maybe if this kind of pans forward, it's probably maybe likely. I don't know. Hopefully, it'd be kind of cool to see what they could do with that. Because I really like the new styling that they've been pursuing. Fostech Purple Heart, if you want real. And Sheldon, I actually have the Fostech Purple Hearts in my closet, and yes, those do slam very, very good. Hard to find because they discontinued them and all that fun stuff, but those are another fun headphone if you can get your hands on a pair of Fostech's Purple Hearts as well. Yeah. And Resolve said he likes the LCD XC over the X sound signature. Yeah, he definitely does like the XC is definitely one of his favorites, and I can confirm that even in private conversations. And he's more of the planar guy. Like he definitely likes planars, and I'm more of a dynamics guy. I like more of the dynamic sound. But yes, and I think based on that, I would if you that's another close back actually. I didn't think about the LCD XC. I always forget about that one. That's another good one that could be a potential for you guys. Slam equal to dynamics and speed. For me, I don't. Not always, because you can have punchiness without having slam. You can have, and honestly, most things that slam, I would say would be in the LCD, the planars. Planars tend to slam, if that makes sense. Or some of these like the Fostech stuff, those can have some slam, and slam and rumble and like that really visceral like moving of air and having it kind of berate your head. You can get them with some dynamics with that have speed. With the speed, will can convey that to some level, but it really, in my experience, most of the time, if you want really good slam, you're going to want really big drivers or planars, or something that can just really push the air hard. So speed, I'd almost not necessarily equal to dynamics and speed, but it does factor. The dynamics and speed do factor into some of that, because most of the time those are faster drivers that do have the little more slam. Oh, Atticus. There you go. That's another one. Thanks, Sheldon. Thank you. Atticus over Icon would be a pretty good one for close back. I always forget about some of the different ZMF headphones close backs. I need to get all of them. I need to just have them all and readily available. I have not heard the on 2 Noir. I haven't seen DMS's take on it. But I should be interesting. Be interesting with this. Yeah, there you go, Pelpan. Yeah, Fostech CHX 00s and the Emutiques are really great for slam. And you can actually, the Emutiques, you can go find, there's a couple different companies that do custom backs, so you can change the wood, and they're just screw on. You just have to unscrew them. And not the easiest thing, but not the hardest to do a swap out for the cups. And you can get different sound signatures based on that too. Not massively, but something cool to look into. And I think getting to the end of it. Thanks. Looking forward to VC versus Dead. Yeah, and that one I'll do next week. I'll get some pictures hopefully this weekend of those and move that along. And I'm actually moving the Celeste. Is going to be leaving my space here soon. I think it's going to DMS actually. Speaking of, and then is my brother an audiophile? No, he's not. I gave him some headphone gear. Budget stuff that I just, it was easier just to give to him as a gift than to sell. I think he has some like Magni Modi and maybe Adam, I think maybe. And then he's got I think he's got a pair of M1060s. So, and I'm probably gonna give him another set of headphones when he comes, and some random speakers I don't use when he comes this weekend. And yeah, thanks you too, Lester. Have a great weekend as well. Final last few questions. Weakest slam I ever heard was probably the stock H800s non-S. Yeah, that they aren't the best for it. The tubes help. Bottlehead crack with speedball helps a bit with it, but nothing crazy. Let's see here. I love these headphones for certain genres, but the bass is nearly enjoyable. Yeah, it can be not the best. Is I assume that anything that will power Safari will power. Yes, anything that's not always, but yeah, anything that powers a Safari can probably power the rolls, depending on how they go. Because it uses speaker taps and uses a specific interface to get the raw power to to them. What's up, Bitter Buffalo? How goes it? The Denons aren't bad for some punch either. Yeah, I heard some really good things about that. Kennerton headphones. I've only heard the Valleys. I thought they reminded me very much so of the Aeolus, but not quite as good, in my opinion, as the Aeolus. And I think with that, I will let you guys go because we are pushing 6 minutes past the hour. I'm trying to keep these to about an hour just because sanity reasons. And hopefully everyone has a great weekend, and I will chat with you guys. I'm going to do a Verite close compared to Stelia next week, and also the Auteur. I'll do an Auteur one. So yeah, so Auteur and compared to my different headphones I have on hand, and then ZMF Auteur, and then also the ZMF Verite closed compared to the Stelia Direct. Yeah, so thank you very much, and yeah, there you go. Thanks, David, everybody. Thanks for joining. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys. Hopefully my rant at the beginning wasn't too off-putting, and we'll see you guys on the next one. How much bigger is H800 soundstage than that of the Zeus? Pretty big. It's much bigger soundstage. You guys get me on the last minutes of questions. Forever goodbyes. I will do my best to lure my brother into audiophile fun. He lures me into cigar fun, so which is good for me because I don't like cigars that much. Let's see here. Enjoy the weekend. All right, yep, cheers. And I think with that, everyone's kind of saying thank you, and we will see you guys on the next swing. And you guys enjoy your weekends. I'm going to hit in stream on the second time right now. So cheers. Have a great weekend, everybody.